Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking on a project that's really, really fundamental to the decentralized web. But honestly, it often feels like a bit of a tangled mess of jargon. We're talking about Ankr, A-N-K-R.
Yeah, it definitely lives in that essential Web3 infrastructure space. Think of it like the digital plumbing.
Hmm.
You don't really see it, but absolutely everything depends on it.
Right.
And if you as a listener have ever tried building something or scaling something Web3, you've probably seen Ankr's name pop up everywhere. RPCs, app chains, liquid staking, and now they've got this new layer one called Nura. It's a lot.
Exactly. That's the feeling we heard, that the project just seems overwhelming because it does so many different things. So, okay, our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to take all the source material we have, boil it down, and figure out exactly what core problem Ankr actually solves.
And crucially, use analogies that make sense. How is it trying to be like the go-to utility provider for Web3, but in simple terms?
Perfect. So let's start right there with the why. What was the fundamental challenge, the difficulty that Ankr originally set out to fix?
Okay, so think about it from a developer's point of view. To build anything in Web3, a dApp, a wallet, any service you need to talk to the blockchain constantly, you need access.
Makes sense.
And that access happens through things called nodes. You can think of a node as basically a server that holds a full copy of the blockchain's data and processes all the transactions. It's the gateway.
Okay, so why not just run your own gateway, your own node? How hard can that be?
Well, that's the kicker. It's really hard, especially if you need it to be reliable and fast, which you absolutely do. Running your own node is, first off, expensive. You need serious hardware. Tons of storage blockchains just keep growing, and massive internet bandwidth.
Right, the data load must be huge.
It is. But maybe even more importantly, it demands constant maintenance, like 24/7. You have to keep it perfectly synchronized with the network, keep it secure, update it, and if you're building something that interacts with multiple blockchains, forget about it. It becomes a nightmare.
So it completely distracts developers from actually building their cool new app.
Exactly. It sucks up time, money, and technical expertise that, especially for a startup, should be going into the product itself. It creates this massive barrier to entry.
Okay, so Ankr's solution, based on the sources, is essentially infrastructure as a service. They're saying, look, don't worry about running the servers, the nodes. We'll handle that complex, costly infrastructure part.
Precisely. You focus on building your application, we'll provide the reliable connection. They want to be that invisible utility layer you just plug into and trust.
That helps, but we need a really simple analogy to make this stick. If Ankr is this essential infrastructure, how can we visualize what it does?
Okay, let's call Ankr the universal Web3 utility company. Or maybe like a global communications switchboard for blockchains. A utility company?
Oh,
Like for electricity or water?
exactly like that.
Yeah.
Think about your house. You don't go out and build your own personal power plant in the backyard, right? That would be insane.
No, definitely not.
You just connect to the grid provided by the local utility company. They manage the complex power plants, the transmission lines, all of it. You just plug your TV into the wall.
Okay, I see where you're going. So my dApp is the TV.
Your dApp is the appliance, yes.
Yeah.
And Ankr is the utility company managing this enormous complex power grid, which in their case isn't just one grid, but connects to over 70 different blockchains. Ethereum, BNB chain, Solana, Polygon, tons of them.
Wow, 70.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
And their core service, the electricity they provide, is mainly these fast, reliable RPC services. RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call. It's basically the invisible communication line that lets your app instantly send a request to the blockchain and get a response back.
And they handle a lot of those requests.
That's an incredible amount. The sources mention over 8 billion RPC requests every single day. That gives you a sense of the scale we're talking about. 8 billion daily. Okay, that's huge. That kind of volume needs some serious tech behind it. Now, Ankr talks a lot about being DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure. How does their actual setup, their architecture, deliver that speed while also claiming decentralization?
Right, this is where it gets interesting. And it's really a hybrid model. That's the key thing to understand. We can break their tech down into roughly 3 layers.
Okay, lay out layer 1 for us, the physical part.
Layer 1 is the hybrid node network. These are the actual power lines, the physical servers. This is the part they promote as DePIN. They have servers distributed globally in over 30 different regions to be close to users everywhere.
Okay.
Now, some of these nodes are run directly by the Ankr team themselves, which gives them a baseline of control and guaranteed service. But a big part of the network comes from independent, third-party node operators.
And why would someone run a node for Ankr, what's in it for them?
Ah, incentives. This is where the crypto economics come in. To become an approved node operator on Ankr's network and start earning fees from handling those RPC requests, you have to put up collateral. You need to stake 100,000 ANKR tokens.
100,000 ANKR. Okay, so that's significant skin in the game.
Exactly. It ensures you're committed, you're reliable. If your node goes down or provides bad data, you can get penalized, lose some of that stake. So it distributes the hardware globally and aligns incentives for good performance. That's the DePIN angle.
Okay, that makes sense for the physical layer, but you mentioned 3 layers. What's layer 2? You said it involves control.
Layer 2 is the load balancer. And this is really critical. It's the brain, the dispatcher, that directs all that traffic, those 8 billion daily requests. But here's the twist. It's not decentralized.
Wait, the dispatcher deciding where all the requests go is centralized, even though the nodes are decentralized? How does that work?
Yeah, it's what we could call the centralization paradox of Ankr. This load balancer is a highly sophisticated piece of software run entirely by the core Ankr team. Its job is to instantly analyze every incoming request and decide which node in that global network should handle it.
What does it look for when deciding?
Primarily speed and accuracy. It looks at things like which node is geographically closest to the user making the request. This minimizes latency, lag.
Yeah.
Is the node fully synchronized with the latest blockchain data? What's its current workload? Can it handle more traffic right now?
So it's constantly optimizing to send the request to the best possible node at that exact moment.
Precisely. And that extreme optimization is why they can handle such massive volume reliably. But the sources point this out as a major critique, this central control point. It kind of goes against the pure Web3 ethos of full decentralization.
Why do they keep it centralized then, if the goal is decentralization?
Speed and reliability, basically.
Yeah.
According to them, building a fully decentralized load balancer that could handle that speed, that volume, across 70-plus chains without adding delays, it's just not technologically feasible right now, or at least not without sacrificing performance. So they made a pragmatic choice, prioritize the speed and reliability that their big clients, like Microsoft, demand, even if it means centralizing the control layer.
Okay, that's a really important clarification. It's a hybrid system driven by practical needs. So that leads us to layer 3. You mentioned their own blockchain, Nura. Why build a whole new layer 1 when they're already connecting to 70 others? Seems counterintuitive.
This is the big strategic move, really aimed at solving a problem with their own ANKR token. Layer 3 is Nura and RPC-Fi. They realized over time that just being a service provider, even a really good one, wasn't creating enough direct, sustainable demand for the ANKR token itself. The token's value wasn't clearly tied to the platform's success.
The classic tokenomics challenge. How does launching Nura fix that?
Through a new economic model they call RPC-Fi, which stands for RPC Finance. This is designed specifically to create utility for ANKR. On their new Nura blockchain, which is focused on things like AI and gaming, ANKR is planned to be the required token for paying transaction fees, gas fees.
Okay, so mandatory usage on their own chain.
Yes, but here's the really crucial part, the part often missing in other infrastructure projects. A portion of those ANKR gas fees collected on Nura isn't just recycled, it's permanently burned, removed from circulation forever.
Burned. Okay, now that's a direct link. So the more people use Nura, the more ANKR gets burned, reducing the total supply.
Exactly. It creates deflationary pressure. Platform usage directly translates into making the remaining tokens potentially more scarce, more valuable. It's their big bet on creating a sustainable economic engine for the token itself, tying its fate directly to the infrastructure's adoption.
Before we dive into the benefits and risks more broadly, this is a great point to quickly pause and remind our listeners of something.
That's right. If you're enjoying how we break down these complex projects into simple pieces and want more reviews just like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel, CryptoBox. We do all the complex research so you don't have to.
Definitely. Okay, so let's talk payoffs now. We understand the tech, the strategy. For actual users, whether that's a developer, a big company, or even just a regular person holding crypto, what are the concrete benefits of using Ankr?
Well, for developers, the biggest one is probably that massive scale and reach. Supporting over 70 blockchains. That's genuinely huge. If you're building something like a cross-chain DeFi app, say something that needs to work on Ethereum and Polygon and Avalanche simultaneously.
Like SushiSwap, for example.
Exactly like SushiSwap, which is actually one of their big clients. Ankr lets you manage the infrastructure for all those chains through one single provider. It saves a massive headache compared to trying to piece together different services for each chain. They really pitch themselves as the one-stop shop for multi-chain infrastructure.
But hang on, does supporting so many chains mean they aren't maybe as good on the biggest chains, like Ethereum, compared to specialists like Alchemy or Infura, who focus just on a few? Is it breadth over depth?
That's a really fair question, and it's definitely part of the competitive landscape we need to touch on in the risks. For now, though, that sheer breadth is a major selling point, especially for multi-chain projects, and it seems to be what attracts corporate validation.
You mean like big traditional companies?
Yeah. The sources highlight some major partnerships. Microsoft, for instance, has integrated Ankr's services, particularly their app chain deployment tools and node services, directly into the Azure marketplace. That means traditional businesses using Azure can easily access Ankr's infrastructure.
Wow, Microsoft Azure. That's significant validation.
It is. And they also partnered with Tencent Cloud, which is huge in Asia, specifically to target that market. Getting buy-in from giants like Microsoft and Tencent signals a level of trust and reliability that goes way beyond just the crypto-native world.
Okay, that covers developers and big business. What about for, the average crypto holder? Is there anything in Ankr's suite for them?
Yes, absolutely. Ankr was actually one of the early players in liquid staking. This is pretty relevant for anyone looking to earn passive income on their crypto.
How does their liquid staking work?
So you can stake assets like Ethereum or BNB through Ankr's platform. Instead of just locking your crypto up, Ankr gives you back a derivative token like Ankr ETH for staked ETH. This Ankr ETH token still earns the underlying staking rewards, but the key is it's liquid. You can immediately use that Ankr in other DeFi protocols, lend it out, use it as collateral, trade it while your original ETH keeps earning those staking yields.
Ah, so you get the staking reward plus the ability to still use the value of your asset in DeFi? Best of both worlds.
Kinda, yeah. It unlocks liquidity. The sources mention their liquid staking has around $83 million in total value locked, or TVL. It's not the biggest player in liquid staking by any means, but it's a solid offering.
That's interesting. What about the ANKR token itself? You mentioned the supply and the burn mechanism with Nura. Is the total supply fixed? Or could more tokens be printed later?
This is actually a really strong point for Ankr, according to the sources. The total maximum supply of ANKR tokens is hard capped at 10 billion. Full stop.
Okay, a fixed cap is good.
But here's the even more critical detail. 100% of that 10 billion supply is already circulating. All the tokens allocated to the team, early investors, advisors, all those vesting schedules finished back in August 2022.
100%. Already out there. That's huge.
It really is. It means you don't have that constant overhang risk of massive amounts of locked tokens suddenly hitting the market and crashing the price, which is a really common issue with many other crypto projects. The supply side is completely known and fixed.
So any future value increase has to come purely from real demand for the token, either through staking, node operation, or that RPC-5 burn mechanism on Nura.
Exactly. The supply is set. Now it's all about driving demand and usage.
Okay, this all sounds quite promising, but we need the critical perspective too. No project is perfect. What are the main vulnerabilities, the biggest competitors, or maybe regulatory issues that the sources point out for Ankr?
Right, let's get into the risks. And we have to start with that centralization paradox we talked about earlier.
The centralized load balancer, the dispatcher.
Yes. While they promote the decentralized node network, the DePIN part, that absolutely critical control layer that directs all the traffic is still centralized, still run by the Ankr team. This isn't just philosophical, it represents a potential single point of failure. If that load balancer system goes down, the entire network across all 70 chains could effectively be halted.
And it also means, theoretically, that central point could be pressured to censor transactions or block access, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of the opposite of what Web3 is supposed to be about.
It absolutely creates that potential vector, yes. It's a trade-off they made for performance, but it's a significant one. The second major risk is fierce competition. Ankr is trying to do so much.
The Swiss Army knife problem.
Exactly. They're like the jack of all trades, master of none, maybe. In the core RPC market, especially for big chains like Ethereum, they're up against giants like Alchemy and Infura. These competitors are often seen as having, frankly, better tooling and support specifically for developers.
So more specialized competition.
Right. And then in liquid staking, they're absolutely dwarfed by the market leaders like Lido and Rocket Pool, whose TVLs are measured in the tens of billions of dollars compared to Ankr's $83 million. Trying to compete effectively on so many fronts, RPC for 70-plus chains, staking, providing rollups as a service, and launching their own L1 blockchain, it definitely risks spreading their resources and focus too thin.
Makes sense. You can't be the best at everything. Did the sources mention any past issues, maybe security problems? For infrastructure, trust is everything.
Yeah, history matters here. The sources do mention a significant security history incident. Back in December 2022, there was an exploit related to one of their liquid staking smart contracts.
An exploit. How bad was it?
It resulted in losses of around $5 million. Now, to their credit, Ankr stepped up and compensated the affected users out of their own treasury. But any security breach like that, especially for a foundational infrastructure provider, inevitably damages trust, particularly with the institutional clients they're trying to court.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not great for an infrastructure play. And finally, what about that new layer one, Nura, the one that's supposed to drive the token value? You said it's key to their future, but is it actually launching?
Well, that's the last major risk identified. Regulatory delays. The sources confirm that the launch of Nura has been actively pushed back, and the reason the team is publicly cited is ongoing legal and regulatory uncertainty.
So regulation is directly holding up their key strategic initiative.
Apparently so. Particularly uncertainty coming out of the US and just the general global regulatory landscape for new blockchains and tokens. It's not just a theoretical risk on the horizon, it's actively impacting their roadmap right now.
Okay, wow. That was a really thorough breakdown. We went from the basic problem to the tech layers, the benefits, and now the significant risks. If you had to boil Ankr down, give the listener just one or two sentences to summarize the whole thing, what would it be?
Okay, let's try. Ankr is a well-established, widely used hybrid Web3 infrastructure provider. It successfully offers essential services like RPC connections and staking across a huge range of over 70 blockchains. However, its future growth and the value of the Ankr token itself seem to now depend almost entirely on whether they can successfully launch their ambitious new Layer 1, Nura, and make its RPC-Fi economic model actually work to create sustainable deflationary demand for Ankr.
That really crystallizes it. Hybrid provider, huge reach, but future success is heavily tied to the Nura RPC, I bet.
Pretty much.
So that leaves us with the big question for you, the listener, to think about after this deep dive. Ankr chose the path of breadth, being the all-in-one Swiss Army knife covering the entire Web3 landscape. Will this strategy of offering everything everywhere allow it to become the indispensable utility layer for the decentralized internet? Or will the sheer complexity of doing so much, combined with the intense, specialized competition in every single area they operate in, ultimately cause them to be spread too thin to truly dominate any single niche?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Trying to build the centralized pipes for a decentralized world. Lots to chew on there.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Ankr. We hope this breakdown was helpful. We'll see you next time.